Today's episode, I'm going to throw quite a lot at you. Not many people know this, but your body is actually a detoxing machine. Unfortunately, in our modern day and world, we have so many stimuli and toxins, etc. that we encounter. They don't even have to include weird green juices unless you want them to. But the thing is, like, in a super simple nutshell, detoxing. All right, have you ever heard the word detox and thought, oh dear, nope, not for me, not interested, that is too intense? Okay, today we will debunk the myths behind detox, what it means, and we'll introduce you to some simple practices that will get you feeling fresh and energized post the holiday festivities. Look, this episode will meet you where you are, whether you are a complete beginner or an advanced practitioner. Let's dive in. Welcome to Resonance, a podcast for ambitious, heart-led humans craving more balance, depth, and aliveness in their lives. I'm your host, Vic, health coach, yoga teacher, facilitator, and fellow high achiever, learning to live in tune with my nervous system, not against it. And this space is here to remind you that you can have it all. The career, the success, the fulfillment, all aligned with your truth. Through honest conversations, expert insights, and practical tools, we'll explore how to work with your body, mind, emotions, and spirit, not against them. And the best part, you don't have to stay stuck in survival mode to get there. Because true well-being is not about being perfect. It's about being in resonance. Let's dive in. Welcome. This is it, everyone. We are back. We're post the peak of the silly season. For most of us, it's probably our second or third week back to work, depending on our schedule. And you know what? Here in New Zealand, we are in peak summer. So like life is thriving, everything is happening, and I'm probably going to anticipate that at this point, you're also kind of into full swing with your New Year's resolutions, right? Whatever that might have looked like, there's just something in the air about this time of year that makes people want to set new goals, set new habits, etc. But the thing is, I often find that these are quite unsustainable because we've just got to meet ourselves where we are. And so rather than trying to force something, what I felt would be really valuable to you at this time of the year is to hand you some really simple, practical detox insights and tips that you can literally take with you and implement today that'll help you come out of this post-holiday slump that many of us tend to feel around this time of year. And what it kind of inspired this episode is that lately I really got into intermittent fasting, which I'll talk to in a little bit. I myself personally do a structured detox every season around like the spring and autumn equinoxes or the summer winter solstices. And I find that works really well for me. But there's just been something recently specifically where I got into such a good rhythm where I felt quite inspired to give back to you, to our community here, because the better it gets, the better it gets. And like, as soon as you start to feel and live and breathe with more energy and more life force and more vitality, you realize that all of this is in your control. It is in your sphere of influence. These are all things that you can do literally starting today. They don't have to cost you any money. Yes, they will cost you effort and maybe time, but on the other side of that time and effort investment is the life of your wildest dreams. So give you a super quick overview. What we're going to kind of dive into is, off the back of the overindulgence that happens around this time of year, we're going to go through specific pillars of your health and well-being. And under each pillar, I'll give like a super simple detox tip that will increase your energy, increase your health and overall wellness, which don't equal deprivation, complexity, or, they don't even have to include weird green juices unless you want them to. We'll also debunk detox and kind of close off with your personalized action plan. So you are in for a goodie. I have been waiting to share this at the right time, and it's finally coming through. So I really look forward to it. Let's dive in. First things first, what is detox, right? You might think of like really intense diets and cleanses and whatever else. But the thing is, like, in a super simple nutshell, detoxing, or detoxification is the full word, is the process of removing harmful or toxic chemicals from your body, mind, spirit, etc. It doesn't just have to be chemicals. It can be any kind of matter, thoughts, habits, behaviors, etc. Basically, in its core essence, detoxifying supports your health and well-being by either reducing or completely removing your exposure to things that are not good for you, whether they are physical or habitual or in the energetic realm, in thought realm, etc. And it's adding in ones that support your health. So it's always about that ongoing playful balance of removing, introducing, removing, introducing. So it's sort of the seesaw effect. And not many people know this, but your body is actually a detoxing machine. Like, we are like, you listening to this episode right now, you are detoxing. Your body goes through this cycle nonstop, day and night, everything you do. And it is so cool. Like, your body is such a powerful vessel that does this automatically. However, unfortunately, in our modern day and world, we have so many stimuli and toxins, etc., that we encounter that our body gets overloaded. And this is why we've got so many issues and diseases and chronic health, syndromes all over the place. So the body needs help. And so through actively detoxifying, you're actually supporting it as well. And look, I'm going to try and keep things like as simple as possible for those of us, particularly that are in the beginner realm. I will include some more advanced things for those of us that are interested in it. But really, I cannot emphasize enough how important it is for you to meet yourself where you are. Like, today's episode, I'm going to throw quite a lot at you. So I'm going to put that disclaimer in there now. There's a lot of content, a lot of information that I have to share. You don't have to do it all. You don't have to do any of it. Like, just let yourself absorb, sit with the insights, sit with the wisdom, and let whatever your next right step is come naturally. But please don't get into that paradigm of, I have to tick all the boxes and do all the things and I've got to be perfect, because that's not going to get you anywhere, okay? And what I'm sharing with you today is like just a tiny sliver as well. Like, there's so much more to this. So why I'm so passionate about it is that detoxifying increases your health so well, like on the physical, on the mental, emotional, spiritual level. And it also can decrease things like chronic pain, inflammation, stress, anxiety. It can improve your brain health, like your focus and your mental clarity, sleep, energy, digestion, gut health, your weight, your skin health. Like, there are so many things that are touched by these really potent yet simple practices. And I'm going to preface this with, just because it sounds simple doesn't mean it's easy. So for some of you listening today, some of the things that I will share, you'll be like, oh yeah, of course I know that. I know I should be doing this. And there's that little gremlin of I should. Well, you're not, are you? Or maybe it could be better, because at the end of the day, we are all humans, myself included. I am not perfect. I am no saint either. I go through the same chitter chatter in my mind as every single one of you. Okay. So just meet yourself where you are. Take it one step at a time. And let's dive into those simple detox tips that will help you recoup post the holiday festivities. So the first one, and I cannot stress this enough, is water. My dear friends, if you are in the beginning stages of your detox journey and your overall health journey, it would just be, please drink more water, okay? Like, as humans, we are up to 70% water, and you need to be drinking at least like roughly 2 to 3 liters, depending on where you are, your size, female, male, etc. But like, probably more than what you're drinking right now is the headline. And I understand it's a habit, like just like anything else, drinking water is a habit. And some people are like, oh, I don't like the taste of it. It's so boring. I keep forgetting it. So a few tips to get you drinking your recommended water intake is, first of all, just carry a water bottle with you. Like, I don't go anywhere without a water bottle, or unless like I know I have a source of water gonna be really handy, like say if I'm going out somewhere and like it's a cafe or something. And if it's the flavor that you've got the issue with, like add some lemon, add some cucumber, add some mint. You can play with like little water additives these days. There's so many like electrolytes and supplements and things that you can put into your water as well. Just drink more water. I will never forget, and I think I've spoken about this on the podcast before, but like one of my clients was complaining of a headache. And of course, the first question I asked was, how much water have you had today? And the answer was none. I had a coffee this morning. And at that point, it was like post midday. So really, like, please, my friends, before you start to search for really complicated answers to your problems, go back to these basics and check where they're at. Now, if you're already like drinking your 2 to 3 liters of water, you're kind of more in the intermediate space around your detox journey, I highly recommend that you filter your water. Unfortunately, even in the cleanest of countries, our tap water has got so many impurities. There's so many chemicals that basically the water gets quote unquote cleaned with, but then there's also all this residue, and it's just, oh my God, guys, it's yuck. I'm not going to go down that path. Just trust me on this. The filters are really affordable. Like, of course you could go all fancy and like get one installed on your tap. But like what I have at home is just like a big Brita filter jug. And I think it's got like activated charcoal in it and whatever. And just filter your water. Keep it simple. What I'll do as well is I'll just include a list of probably just the names of the products that I mention in the show notes for your reference, just because I'm going to be mentioning quite a lot. So you can kind of go back and do your research and see what works for you. So filter your water is my detox tip for my intermediate practitioners. And for those of you that are in the advanced space and want to kind of dig into things a little bit deeper, I've got 2 avenues down which you can go, or both, which I highly recommend. The first one is, if available to you and aligns with your beliefs and values, I highly recommend that you drink alkaline water. So what alkaline water is actually like water that we used to drink back when, we were scavengers and foragers. So water that's naturally alkaline is available from things like springs and streams, right? So what makes it alkaline is when it passes over rocks. And as it passes over rocks through these streams, it picks up minerals, etc. And if you were to go and research this, you'll see that it's a hotly debated topic because there's limited research, blah, blah, blah. It's like the typical debate that you have where science says something isn't real until they have had 50 million studies that show that it could potentially be real. So don't get me wrong, like obviously I've done a postgrad in nutrition. I know how important science is, and like this research is critical. And of course, you don't want to be taken advantage of by like marketing fads, etc. But like just use your brain. And if alkaline water was good for our ancestors, then it's probably good for us, right? Like sometimes it just takes science 100 years to catch up with what we've known for millennia. And the thing is, like, the argument here is, and that's what resonated with me, is our body does a great job of balancing our pH levels, right? So kind of the balance between acidity and alkalinity. However, things like stress, things like oxidative stress, right? So eating junk foods or pollution, dust, all these things, they increase the acidity in our body. And so alkalinity, on the other hand, tends to balance these things out. And the research so far says that, there's insufficient evidence and the water intake isn't enough to change the alkaline levels in the bloodstream, which I understand. And at the same time, we're up to 70% water. Like, it can't hurt. I've been drinking alkaline water most of the time and feeling great. And at this point, I'm actually so particular with my water that I can taste when it's unfiltered and when it's almost like flat. It's like, yuck. Oh my gosh. So anyways, basically what I'm trying to say is have a look into the quality of your water. If you can go down the more alkaline route, highly recommend it. And the second little kind of avenue that I encourage you to go down is essential minerals. So we as humans need essential minerals, some of which, none of which we can produce ourselves. So we need to get them from the food and water and that we consume in our bodies. And so especially if you live in a hot climate or it's summer for right now, or if you drink a lot of water, it's even more so important for you to have essential minerals in your water, because otherwise you could risk hyponatremia, which is where you dilute the mineral balance in your body too much. So I, especially in the summer, tend to supplement my water with a little bit of trace minerals. And I also do it when I'm fasting and sometimes when I just feel like I need it. So in terms of my recommendations for the water itself, I personally drink Ararimu, which I get from my local common sense store. And then for the electrolytes, I recommend just going down like the traditional basic boring route, because those will actually be the ones that give you the most bang for your buck and return on investment in terms of the minerals you get, like they deliver, versus like if you go too far down the supplement route and try and get too fancy with flavors, etc., you're basically just putting sugar in your water, and you may as well just have a Coke then. So just choose wisely, choose for yourself. I'll include the name of the electrolyte brand that I use. I can't remember it because it's not a fancy brand, it's just like pure trace minerals. Up next for our detox, we have got alcohol. And I know you probably have just come out of a really heavy drinking season. So for my beginners or people who are earlier on in their detox journey, right? So this isn't also about labels or judgment or anything. Like, just because I use the word beginner doesn't mean that you are any different from someone who's advanced. I'm just kind of trying to create these distinctions so that we can all meet ourselves where we're at. So if you are earlier on in this journey, aka beginner, just drink less. I'm not gonna lie, there is no safe level of alcohol intake from a health perspective. So I'll let you do what you want to do with that information, but just drink less than what you have been. As soon as you drink alcohol, your liver deprioritizes any other detox activities that it has been doing, and it goes straight to break down the alcohol first, because alcohol is poison. You are literally poisoning your body. I will leave it at that. You can make an informed decision. If you are more on the intermediate route and you're like, yes, okay, I'm ready for more, I would really encourage you to have an honest self-assessment whether perhaps you might have binge drinking tendencies. Now, I say this with grace and with care and with utmost compassion for you, because I have been there, and I vividly remember when I was scrolling down I can't remember the name of the website, but it's like the Drink Safe or something, New Zealand. And I did their little quiz and I was like, oh, sheesh. I think this isn't normal. And that can be quite confronting. And I didn't want to accept that for a really long time because my view of what was normal was very different to what I was being told. So just hear me out here and just let this simmer. And if it's not resonating right now, you can let it go and come back to it. But if you are female, ideally, you're not having any more than 2 standard drinks a day and a maximum of 10 standard drinks a week. Maximum, and this is to lower the risk of injury, would be no more than 4 standard drinks a day for a female. If you are male, on the other hand, it's a little bit more, but not that much more. No more than 3 standard drinks a day, up to 15 a week. And to lower the risk of injury, no more than 5. So I don't know about you, but the country that I live in, which is New Zealand, has a really heavy binge drinking culture. These days, especially like the RTDs that are being popularized out here are like more than a standard drink in a can to start with. And many people who I know will go through a box of these in a night and have a massive night. So unfortunately, places like New Zealand and many other countries in the world have a really bad binge drinking problem. I had a really bad binge drinking problem. And I'm just going to invite you to start to question yourself as to whether you have a binge drinking problem as well. This is not judgment. This is simply awareness. And if you feel ready to look at this a little bit more from an advanced lens, right? Going back to the detox components. If you are with me, I highly recommend that you just quit alcohol in general. Just trust me on this. Like, life gets so much better once you are sober. And I don't say sober in the way of like that you have had to have a drinking problem to be sober. Like, you can just choose to be sober. And I have so much compassion for you because I remember the process that I went through in my mind where like my body, mind, and spirit were already telling me, okay, I don't want to drink anymore. And yet there was this social stigma and like worries of what that would mean for my social life and my relationships and my friendships and who I am. And I was having this whole identity crisis, etc. So like, I understand the gravity of this and the peer pressure that comes around it. But the level of clarity and awareness and aliveness and life that became available to me after I stopped drinking, it's like I became a different human, a much better human, a much kinder human, a much healthier human. And if it's FOMO that is like your biggest concern, there's so many alcohol-free brands out there these days. Like, my personal favorite is Alter Ego because they have some bioactive compounds like maca and ginseng and L-theanine that make you feel more social just because of the way that they stimulate energy in your body, but they're like not poisoning your body. So yeah, Alter Ego is definitely my favorite. And even then it's so funny because I'll only have like 1 or 2 just because of the sugar. It gives me a headache the next day. Like, that's how sensitive I am these days to just sugary drinks. I don't have them. I just stick to the waters and the cacao. Speaking of cacao, all right, our next pillar is caffeine. Most of us are addicted to caffeine. Most of us are drinking way too much caffeine. And I'm mostly talking to this from a coffee perspective because that tends to have the highest concentration of caffeine and like what most people are addicted to. But just know that caffeine is also included in black teas and green teas and matcha, etc., etc., etc. There's just different ways that the caffeine reacts with your brain and your body. So if you are quite early on in your detox journey when it comes to caffeine, I just again recommend that you cut back and drink less. One of the reasons why is, especially for women, caffeine stops iron absorption, or it gets in the way of iron absorption. And like, as women, we already struggle with this. Like, we don't need even more of that. On top of that, it increases anxiety, agitation. It can mess with your circadian rhythm and your sleep patterns. Like there's just, it's not necessary, is all I'm trying to say. But just drink less to start with. And if that already feels quite achievable and you're kind of on the journey with me, you're in that intermediate realm, I would invite you to consider alternatives. So maybe things like matcha or cacao. And again, don't get me wrong, they do contain caffeine as well. However, depending on the type of cacao that you have, there is a compound called theobromine, which has it's like a cousin of caffeine. It works in a different way, but gives you a similar stimulating effect without the negatives that caffeine does. And certain types of cacao will still have caffeine in them, but again, at very much safer, much lower doses and quantities. Again, personally, I am a huge fan and supporter of Seleno Health. They are fully organic, ceremonially grown, harvested in Peru. Like, it is just incredible. And actually, I drink it not so much for the energy, but more the ritual. Like, I love the taste. I love cacao. It's amazing. It's a heart opener. It connects me to myself, my body, and source. And so, yeah, that's just something for you to explore if that sounds interesting. And if you're in the advanced realm, hey, maybe you just let go of coffee and caffeine completely. I personally don't drink coffee. I can't remember the last time I had a coffee, many, many years ago. No energy drinks either, by the way. Please don't do that. That's just silly. But I simply am so ridiculously sensitive to caffeine. Honestly, at this point, I don't even drink green and black tea. It would be very rare if I did, like very, very rare. And that is because I've just become so sensitive to, the sweaty palms, the anxiety, the tremors, I already have so much life force energy emanating up and through me. Like, I don't need more stimulants. I would just not shut up. So yeah, that's all I've got to say on caffeine. Now, let's move into food and nutrition because, I am a foodie. I've done a postgrad in human nutrition. This is like my passion. And so when it comes to food and detoxifying, I just want to preface this with diet culture has set us up for failure here. You really don't need to be that rigid. I'm not even going to talk about weight management or anything right now. We're just going to look at quality because chances are, and this is what the holidays are for, right? Like, we only live once. Of course, please indulge. I indulge all the time. I love my treats, but there is a delicate balance between overindulging and indulging and emotional eating versus conscious eating, all these things. So in order to help you get back to center when it comes to nutrition and detoxifying, for someone who's just starting on this journey, I would just invite you to eat more real food. What do I mean by real food? I mean food that grew in the soil or was at some point alive, isn't manufactured by someone or chemically engineered and in a box. So what I'm saying by that is foods that effectively by their nature have a shorter shelf life. They are foods that by their nature you will mostly find in the perimeter of the supermarket, like vegetables, fruits, root vegetables, leafy greens, whole grains, lean proteins, etc. Just more real food, less chemically engineered nonsense is where I would begin. And then if you're already yeah, I've got this, I eat lots of nutrient dense foods. If you're in that intermediate realm, I highly recommend for you to begin to experiment with some of the more nuanced impacts that specific nutrients might be having on your body. I'm not saying cut them out. I'm not saying any elimination diets or anything like that, but just begin to tune into how you feel when you eat and when you don't eat certain foods. So for example, the first thing I'm going to talk to is dairy. I don't eat dairy. It just happened as I was kind of going through my own healing journey, and I was also playing with these alternative lifestyle measures, and I cut out dairy. I've been feeling so great. I've never wanted to go back since. And you see, dairy is actually highly inflammatory. And as humans, we are the only species on the planet that drinks the milk of another species, like voluntarily. Those of you that give milk to your cats, look, that is your choice, but it's against our nature, effectively, is what I'm trying to say. And the other piece that you can look into is your gluten sensitivity. So a lot of people are actually sensitive to wheat and gluten, but they don't know it. And you'd be surprised, gluten is found in so many. So again, it's something you can play with. Again, I'm not gluten free, but I am really conscious of my gluten intake, and I really feel great when I don't eat gluten. So I can tell what it does is, like, gluten is just like this sticky protein. And so imagine there's just like this kind of sticky substance in your digestive tract, just kind of, pulling things around, etc. And when you don't have it, everything can just work really nicely and smoothly. So I'll leave you to experiment with that on your own. And the third thing to experiment with would be the impact of meat on your digestion, especially red meat, because that can take a really long time to digest. And again, it's not until I became more conscious of what I was putting into my body and really tuning into how I felt internally that I noticed things like when I eat red meat, if I feel really bloated, I get constipated. My body just doesn't respond to it that well. Pork, I mostly choose not to. And like, my partner knows this, and like, why lean proteins like chicken or turkey, I can eat all day, every day. But when it comes to red meat, I now choose to be really choiceful, because that's just my body's individual response. And this is what I want to really highlight when it comes to detox, when it comes to any lifestyle measures, is remember to honor your bio individuality, because what works for you might not work for me and might not work for someone else. You are incredibly unique. You have your own genetic makeup. You have the unique, specific ways that your body is designed to thrive, but you've got to experiment. And sometimes that means finding what doesn't work so that you can sift that to the side and nail the thing that is going to work for you for once and for all. Now, when it comes to nutrition, I am such a nerd. I couldn't leave it at just one thing for my intermediate. So there's, of course, you can experiment with the impact of the different compounds I've just shared with you on your digestion. But the other piece I would invite you to experiment with is to bring more awareness and, if possible, action to eating more organic whole foods, if possible. Why? Because the pesticides that our food is sprayed with is increasing the toxic load in your body. So if you're trying to detox and you're eating more whole foods, that's great. Like, don't get me wrong. If you're like in the beginner area, please start there, because pesticide food is better than no real food. However, the main ingredient of the pesticides, which is glyphosate, is literally the chemical warfare weapon that was being used in World War II. So do with that information what you wish. It is, all I'm going to say is, organic is better for your health. It is better for your planet. And be careful with greenwashing and marketing, because organic is not free range or grass-fed or macro or natural or homegrown. None of that means organic, okay? And like, I see this firsthand because I'm really particular with my food, and when I'm not the one doing the grocery shop and I'm writing the list, I'll be like really specific, only get this if it's organic, right? And like, it was so cute. I sent Cam out to do the groceries and he was getting some chicken breast, and I was like, just the organic one. And he comes home and it's not organic, but it's got a green macro label on it, right? Which is like a brand. And I was like, this isn't organic. Like, what do you mean? But it says free range. I'm like, this is not organic. So Yeah, especially when you're having like animal products as well, it's probably even more pronounced because the thing is like anything that the animal was eating or that was ingested with, like hormones and antibiotics, which happens more often than you would like to know, is then going to go into your body when you eat that animal. So just, yeah. Eat organic if you can. I know that it's more expensive. So I do also want to acknowledge that obviously based on seasonality, where you live, on your lifestyle and your budgets, that might not seem feasible. So this is why I recommend starting with at least eliminating the dirty dozen. So the dirty dozen, if you're not familiar with what they are, it's the Environmental Working Group every year publishes a list of the highest pesticide levels in foods that are grown non-organically, which again, if a food is on that list, either buy organic or just don't buy it at all. So for example, like it is very rare, very, very rare that I will eat like a tomato or a cucumber that's not organically grown. Unless like, again, I've got other detox practices. So I do it when it's like out of season and it's only available non-organically. But I'm really conscious about it. So the dirty dozen in 2024, because the list does change every year, include strawberries, spinach, kale, grapes, peaches, pears, nectarines, apples, capsicums, cherries, blueberries, and green beans. You can probably see quite a trend here. Basically, like, again, I generally tend to keep a list of these on my phone, so it's a really quick reference point. But think of it this way. If the fruit or vegetable is bare, is like you eat the skin of it, or if it's something like lettuce or spinach or kale, right? Where it's like just this is how it grows and that's directly sprayed and that's what you eat, you're going to ingest a buttload of pesticides. Versus, say, the Clean 15. So these are fruit and vegetables that are safest to buy non-organic. Again, still organic is best, but if that's not accessible or not available to you, then you're at least risk of pesticides getting in, or a lot of pesticides getting into you. They're generally things with more thick skin. So think things like avocados, pineapple, bananas, that sort of thing. So you can dig into that yourself, but that's definitely an addition for my intermediate people. And if you're in the advanced category and you're like, yeah, I already do all this. This is like super, I know all this. Don't worry about me. Well, in that case, I would invite you to experiment with intermittent fasting and fasting. So I love Dr. Mindy Peltz's work. She wrote many books. One of my favorites is Fast Like a Girl, which I literally follow her recommendations and I feel freaking amazing. So I'll link that up in the show notes. And really, I highly recommend that you include some kind of fast or cleanse or detox when it comes to your nutrition, at least seasonally, if not monthly. So at this point, I've actually gotten to a rhythm where I do a cleanse on a monthly basis. It's a more intense cleanse on a quarterly basis, but the thing is, when you stop eating for a specific amount of time, you begin to stimulate autophagy, which is like your cells are going to start eating themselves and they're going to eat and remove like dead or damaged cells. And then you get to a specific point a little bit further down the track where you begin to produce stem cells, which is like these like super powered cells that elite athletes pay thousands and thousands and thousands to get injected into their body so they can heal and regenerate faster. So, yeah, I'm not going to nerd out too much down on this avenue. If this is something that's interesting to you, I highly recommend that you kind of go down this route and do your research. And also, I would invite you to look into juicing and kind of boosting your nutrient intake through cold pressed juices specifically. There are some additional points that you can look into. And again, this is for my advanced folks. So this is why I'm just kind of like throwing all this your way, assuming that you're already a nutrition and health nerd just like me. And so like you will go and do your own research. So some of the other pathways that you could go down could be either considering cutting out or reducing vegetable oils and other unhealthy oils, sugars, and making more of your foods at home rather than store bought. So a great example of this is like hummus, for example, which I cannot find a hummus in the supermarket that is not made with vegetable or canola oil. And without going too much down that rabbit hole, like there are many toxic oils that increase oxidative stress in your body. So I'm like, I don't want to eat that. I just make my own hummus now. It's easier than it seems, guys. Like it might seem really hard and overwhelming in the beginning. That's because it's new. That's because you haven't formed those neural synapses in your brain yet. That's just how change works. But then once you've done it once and twice and 3 times, you actually realize, okay, it's actually so much easier than I thought. And lastly, for my advanced folks, when it comes to your nutrition and food, I also recommend that you start looking into supplementation. Now, I will preface this with, I highly recommend that you start with a naturopath. So get your bloods done, do your tests, speak with a professional who will be able to recommend and prescribe you exactly what you need for your unique circumstances. But off the top of my head, like some of the supplements that most of us need, no matter what your diet, no matter what your lifestyle, is things like essential fatty acids that most of us don't get enough. So be that through fish oils, or I personally use Udo's oil, which is an organic blend of like flax, chia, and sunflower seed. I think that's cold pressed. Anyways, I'll link that up. Magnesium, vitamin D, pre and probiotics, etc. So again, you can do your research, but honestly, it's easier if you reach out to a naturopath. I highly recommend Taylor. She was my naturopath. She's been on the podcast before, so have a look-see and see how that resonates with you. All right. We're on the home stretch, team. If you are still with me, we've only got a few more places to go and we'll begin to wrap things up. So hopefully at this point, you're already beginning to figure out which areas resonate more with you than others as to how you want to detoxify your body from the heavy toxic load that you may have accumulated over this festive season and even before that. So we're going to move away from like the physical, tangible stuff and move into self-care now. Now, look, if you are very much in the beginning of your detox journey, all I'm going to share is that please invite more sleep and rest into your life. I'm pretty sure that most of us could do with more sleep and rest in our lives. The second thing is do something for you, for yourself. And the third thing would be maybe try asking for help rather than holding it all yourself and doing it all yourself. So I'm sure this is already plenty for you to work with. And these are ways for you to detox, not just physically, but also mentally and emotionally. Because yeah, detoxification isn't just physical stress and load. There's mental toxic load we accumulate. There's emotional stress that we accumulate. So hence the typical holistic approach that you can expect from me here. Now, for my more intermediate peeps, I highly recommend additional self-care practices that you can play with, such as Epsom salt baths. Magnesium salt's super great. I tend to do one like most nights. Maybe you play with like lymphatic drainage using a gua sha or dry body brushing, which is a really great way. Like when you dry body brush, which you literally like, I just do it before I shower. You are helping remove dead skin cells from your body, and your skin is your largest organ. So when you detoxify, a lot of the toxins try and come out through your skin. So you're basically helping speed up the process and supporting the body in that process. Something else you could do is a sauna. So again, sweating is a really great way to detoxify, especially infrared saunas. They're really great because the infrared light penetrates into your body rather than the standard heat saunas. Both saunas are great, but infrared is better. And then for my advanced peeps, hear me out here. I swear by coffee enemas. Oh my God. Like, I do one at least once a week. It helps your liver produce glutathione, which is your body's detox chemical, and it flushes out all the waste from your gut. You feel incredible afterwards. I swear by them. I was freaked out the first time I thought of doing a coffee enema. I'm not gonna lie. However, when I finally did my due diligence and did my research and got into it, I've never stopped since. So the brand that I use, I love them. They're super cute. It's called Happy Bum Co. Again, I'll link them up. They're actually like on my wish list to bring onto the podcast. So we'll see. Maybe you'll hear from the experts very soon. But yeah, I encourage you to dive into this. And another detox support self-care activity could be to play with castor oil. So this one's actually something new for me because, again, I'm on this journey just as you are. I've just ordered my kit and I have read and learned that castor oil can be really supportive when massaged onto where your liver is on the abdomen, and then like putting a little wheat pack over the top and some heat for the oil to like absorb into the liver. So I'll report back on how that went. But again, that's another thing that maybe my advanced practitioners can experiment with me at the same time. And so to wrap things up into a pretty little bow, the last pillar I just really wanted to touch on is your mind. So I've spoken to this already. Just as we accumulate physical stress in our physical body, we accumulate stress in our mental and emotional body as well. And so if you are new to this, just 1 minute of stillness and quiet for my beginners, or joyful movement. And I say joyful like something that actually brings you joy and isn't just a box to tick because you think you should be doing it. No, something that lights you up from the inside. Just joy, little moments of joy, connection. That will help you detoxify the mind from chronic stress and toxic overload. For my more intermediate practitioners, I invite you to explore mindfulness more deeply. So if you haven't already, I highly, highly encourage you to dive into my complimentary online course. It is called Live in Presence, 8 Days of Mindfulness, which walks you through super simple daily practices. They're no more than like 5, maybe the longest one is 10 minutes, but it effectively teaches you everything that I wish I had known when I first heard the word mindfulness. And that is something that you can play with and you can experiment with what works best for you. And if you are maybe more inclined in the active mental detox side of things, you could play with things like coloring in or reading or music, being outside and grounding your feet into the earth. All of this will help your mental health. And then for my advanced practitioners, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you find a regular daily sadhana, which is like a practice that you return to every day. For me, it's meditation. I do it every day, twice a day, 15 minutes. It's been over a year now that I've been doing this, and I swear by Emily Fletcher's Ziva technique. It has worked for me like nothing else. I'll include the link in the show notes below if it's of interest to you. This is the time, guys, where I literally detox my mind from all the stress. I don't know who I would be without this practice now. Like that, I need this practice to really navigate all the toxins and all the stress of day-to-day life. So highly encourage you to look into that. Now, as I wrap this episode, I do also just want to leave you with a little word of warning that when you detoxify, especially in the physical space, but also like in the mental space. So when I did Ziva Online, which is the meditation course where Emily taught me how to meditate, I went through a stress detox in the truest form of the word. Like it was pretty intense. And just so much you can go through that detox symptom in the physical body, which can manifest as like side effects and reactions, because all that toxicity, all the stress, whatever toxic load that you have been carrying, it needs to come out somehow. And your biggest detox organs are your liver, your skin. There's kind of other organs as well, but just know that if you feel like you've got a little bit of brain fog or bloating, constipation, you feel quite fatigued, headaches, a skin rash, nausea, when you started detoxing, that is all completely normal. Like, often it will get a little bit worse before it gets better. That is a good sign. It means you're getting the stuff up and out. And like Emily in her course, when I had the stress, I guess the mindfulness and meditation practice that was flushing out all the stored stress from my system, she had this like really silly song that was like, better out than in. Better out than in, and that just kept sticking in my brain every time I was having a rough time, and I was like, yeah, it's coming out. Better out than in, So if you're going through these symptoms, just know better out than in your body. And I am not immune to this either, my friends. Even with my lifestyle that I have, I, to date, in my regular fasts, have not been able to go beyond 36 hours of water fasting. That seems to be my cutoff point at the moment. I'm now gradually working up, but that is the point where my body switches into like really intense detox mode, where I kid you not, the first time I felt this, I was like, I now understand what people feel when they go through withdrawal of like drugs, because it's, unless you felt this sensation, you cannot put, it's hard to even put it into words, but it's just like an actual physical ache. Like I can feel the toxins leaving my body, and that's just like sugar and fast food and pollution, etc. Like I lead a pretty healthy lifestyle, and I have pretty high detox symptoms myself. So just be gentle, start small. Be graceful with anything you may be experiencing. And if you ever need help or support, of course, I'm always here. But look, hearing all of this insight, there's probably one thing. I invite you to just choose one thing where you can acknowledge that that area of your life right now probably needs the most care and attention. What is that specific area? Start there. And then from that space, ask yourself, where am I on my journey? Am I in the beginner realm? Like, am I just getting started, or am I kind of intermediate, or am I ready to go all the way advanced? But don't go all the way advanced if you are just getting started, because that is your recipe for failure. You're not going to implement sustainable lifestyle behavior changes if you try and do too much too soon. Meet yourself where you are, please. And I've been purposely reiterating that through this episode so that you can feel fresher and more energized and thrive and let go of that sluggishness and any overindulgence that has accumulated over this holiday season. I really look forward to hearing how this resonates with you. Pick one thing. Just one thing. Give it a try. Let me know how it goes. I'll see you next week. Bye for now. Vik. If the word mindfulness has ever felt vague, overwhelming, or just a little out of reach, I created something just for you. Live in presence. 8 days of mindfulness is my free online course that gently walks you through everything I wish I had known when I first heard the word mindfulness. It is a soft, spacious introduction to presence. There's no jargon, no overwhelm, and no pressure to do it right, quote unquote. So over 8 days, you'll receive short, grounded lessons and simple practices that you can weave into your real life, even if you are busy, tired, or feeling totally out of sync. And the link is in the show notes below or through the link in my bios at Live in Health. Because presence isn't something you have to earn. It's something you get to return to. The views and opinions expressed by guests on Resonance are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of me, Viktoria Levenberg, Live in Health, or anyone working within the Live in Health brand. This space welcomes a diversity of ideas, experiences, and stories, and part of Resonance is learning to take what aligns and gently leaving the rest. Also, while I am a national board-certified health and wellness coach and deeply passionate about well-being, this podcast is intended for educational and inspirational purposes only. Resonance does not substitute personalized medical, psychological, or therapeutic advice. Always seek guidance from qualified professionals for any physical, emotional, or mental health concerns.